Take two! Yay! Welcome to Sankofa Summer School. You know, as technology goes, we had a little bit of a glitch, but that's okay because we are back and we are streaming live. And my enthusiasm for this class has not been diminished by a little bit of a technical issue, okay? So, you know, Sankofa Summer School, we're going for 3 weeks this summer, 2024. Very excited about the diversity of the classes that we have, but it's really important to me that we had some classes that were focusing on our wellness, on our, you know, pleasure and all of those kinds of things. And so I was looking for people that were going to bring some of that diversity to what we are talking about. So I have someone amazing. And when I say that, it's not just because I'm biased because it's my school, but it's also because this is my friend and I have known her for many, many, many years right now. And I have just watched her really kind of dig into this space, this educator space. She is so talented, so intelligent, and so wonderful. I'm just going to read her bio, which is amazing. And then I'm going to bring her to the stage and let her do her thing for Sankofa Summer School. Okay. It'd be nice if I had it in front of me. Okay, great. Listen, are we family? Are we family? Okay. Jéri L. Ogden, Ed.D, is an educator, writer, and facilitator with a passion for an emphasis on equitable practices and cultural competence. With over 14 years of progressive teacher leadership, she works at a nationally recognized education nonprofit where she focuses on providing teaching and learning experiences to a network of educators. Dr. Ogden is also a member of the adjunct staff at Georgetown University and Marymount University, where her courses focus on restorative practices, relationship building in school systems, professional collaboration, and empathy. In addition, she is the founder of Purple, Purple, a consulting firm that provides purposeful, uplifting, and restorative professional learning experiences to organizations and communities. Dr. Ogden holds a bachelor's degree from Howard University in communication and culture, a master's degree from American University in educational leadership and policy, and a doctorate in educational leadership and organizational innovation from Marymount. You know, she kept it in that DMV. All right. Her work is rooted in a philosophy that you cannot separate the tree from its roots, and she is always seeking to understand the context of people and places because it matters. I cannot tell you, I cannot just say how much I co-sign, you know, this woman. She's so smart, she's so brilliant, and we are so excited to have her here in Sankofa Summer School. I'm going to bring her to the stage. You got this, girl. I think you got this. All right, I'm going to leave. And y'all are in amazing hands. Let's all get ready. All right, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. So again, I am Dr. Jéri L. Ogden, a pleasure professional. So we are here for Ubuntu and Elation, cultivating communal joy and pleasure. And before we get into that, I want to just honor Afrocentricity in this space because it is the guiding work for all that we're doing over these next 2 weeks. So Dr. Molefi Asante developed Afrocentricity as a theoretical framework in the 1980s. Since then, brilliant scholars have expanded the Afrocentric paradigm, giving us a template to guide our educational praxis. Simply, being Afrocentric means centering Africana people in their own narratives and making them the subjects, not the objects of other people's stories. For most of us, our learning experiences have been primarily Eurocentric. We learned that European ways of knowing and being are the best and universally applicable. Afrocentricity challenges this notion of European white supremacy and encourages us to center ourselves as Africana people first and foremost. We take this approach because it is empowering and it is the truth. So let's get into it with that in mind. Before we move forward, I want to just take a moment, like I always do, to give honor to my ancestors. I wouldn't be in this place without them. So we are all here because of the choices and sacrifices of our ancestors. We honor them and give thanks for the little and great gifts. We show gratitude for the little and huge nudges that remind us of the greatness of those we walk with. Ashe. I also want to just take a moment to give you all sort of a little bit of context about how I'm entering this space as someone who believes in pleasure, seeks pleasure. Some of my muses are on this board. So we have Adrienne Maree Brown, who is the author of Pleasure Activism. We have Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde, who wrote Use of the Erotic. We also have a new favorite of mine, Christina M. Baker, Dr. Christina M. Baker, who writes about pleasure and Blackness in media and the communication space. And she says that narratives of loss, sorrow, violence, and anger have overwhelmingly driven most media that centers Blackness. As such, it is not surprising that the relationship between Blackness and joy or pleasure has been underexplored within communication scholarship. So as someone who majored in communication and culture and really wants to understand the images that we see, her work has really been speaking to me over the last few months. So Dr. Taylor already gave you all my bio, so I won't go through this again, but if you watch this again and you want to pause on this slide to understand my education and my experience and my identity as a Black queer woman and my likes, this is the slide for you. But we're going to keep it moving. All right, so educator at heart. So we got to have some objectives, right? So our objectives for this session are that you all participants, whether you're watching this live or going to listen to it later, will understand the key principles of Ubuntu. Also, you'll engage in breathwork and movement activities that lead to joy and pleasure. And you will also have an opportunity to acquire resources to begin or enhance your journey with pleasure. That's our main focus over this next hour or so. So our agenda, really quickly, we're just going to go through these different things. We're going to have an opportunity for a welcome, which I've just done. I'm going to introduce you to the Ubuntu principles and elation. We're going to talk about the research because, you know, as a freshly minted doctor and researcher before that, the research matters. We're going to talk about the history of breathwork in African communities. We're going to go through some guided breathwork and movement. I'm going to challenge you all before we leave here, and then I'll have some closing and final thoughts. So this quote sort of keeps coming up for me, and I just thought it would be a great one to use as we begin this conversation. So for oppressed people to intentionally cultivate pleasure is an act of resistance, by Ingrid LaFleur. So this work that we're going to be engaging in is an act of resistance. I'm going to talk about that a bit in the history piece and why this is so important and so important for Black people to access pleasure and joy and happiness, positive thinking, and what that does for us, and why it is such a tool in the social justice world, right? So we're going to get into that, but this quote just really stuck out to me. So the Ubuntu principles, the first one is that I am what I am because who we all are. So Ubuntu is a Zulu word that means humanity towards others. It is a philosophy that has originated in Africa and across the Bantu languages. There's some version of Ubuntu. It emphasizes our interconnectedness and community. The principles of Ubuntu remind us that we are not alone, that we are part of the larger web of life. There is some variation in the principles, but the 5 on the screen really speak to me. So solidarity, kindness, cooperation, respect, and compassion. These principles encourage us to live in harmony with each other and with nature. And it also reminds us that our individual joy and pleasure are connected, right? So when we think about collectivism over individualism, collectivism is in our DNA as Black people, as African people. The idea of extended families, for example, we all have a cousin who isn't really our blood related cousin, but we have an auntie who is probably our mom's longest friend, or an uncle. That idea of extended families is one example of collectivism. There was a time, and shout out to those of us who are still upholding this practice of extended families, right? And those are structures where you might have multi-generations living together, or at least maintaining close ties. The extended family is the primary support system, and individuals are expected to continue and contribute to the benefit of the collective from the resources pooled together. So these 3 ideas on the screen right now are what make up Ubuntu. So I am what I am because of who we all are is probably the most common and known version and understanding of what Ubuntu means. But there's some other things that go a little bit deeper when we think about the principles and the philosophy and how it guides our lives overall. So pleasure principles. These pleasure principles were adapted or written, actually, I'm sorry, and defined by Adrienne Marie Brown in the book Pleasure Activism. Each one is explained in the text, but I want to offer what they mean to me as I read the book. So the first one, what you pay attention to grows. So when I think about that, it's really about focusing on what you have and not what you lack, right? The second one, we become what we practice. So the body keeps the score, right? So if we want to embody joy and pleasure, we have to practice it. The third is yes is the way. And it feels good to move towards it. So I'm very much guided by my gut, right? And I seek to engage in those things that make me feel settled and not anxious in that space. So moving towards things that make me want to say, yes, yes is the way. The fourth one, when I am happy, it is good for the world. If I embody joy and seek pleasure, I not only engage people in a way that is joyful, but I am an example for how they can also embody joy and pleasure. So this goes back to that interconnectedness. So that is the fourth. The fifth one, and there's actually a much deeper quote that goes with this that we'll talk about, but the deepest pleasure comes from riding the line between commitment and detachment. Detachment is a tough word for some folks, but when we think about this idea, it's really about letting go of what you think is supposed to happen and flow with what is happening, because the outcome is going to be what the outcome is going to be, and how you react to it is what's important. Right. So the sixth one is make justice and liberation feel good. Freedom should feel pleasing. It is labor, it is work, but it should be pleasing to us. Number 7, your no makes the way for your yes. Honor your boundaries so that you can access what is pleasurable. And lastly, moderation is key. Pleasure is not about being in this euphoric state all the time, but it is about being able to sense when something feels good to you so that you can then replicate those feelings and have an understanding of what it means when that feeling is bubbled up in you. That is what we're talking about when we're talking about pleasure, not this just la la land. I'm not talking about toxic positivity, but what feels good and how can I recreate those feelings on a consistent basis. So when we talk about elation, we're talking about this intense joy that we have, right? If you're churchy, you grew up knowing the difference between joy and happiness, which even if you're not churchy, you may have understood that. But joy is this idea that is there. It's sort of an undercurrent in our lives, and it's not contingent upon what is happening to us, right? But it's always sort of there. In the context of Ubuntu, it's a collective experience where joy touches everyone around us. So elation is a state of happiness and joy. It is a feeling of being fully alive, connected to ourselves and others. It's not just a personal experience, but a collective one. And when we cultivate elation, we create a ripple effect of joy and pleasure. We're going to explore how to cultivate elation through movement and breath work. We're going to have some time to connect with our bodies and pleasure, thinking about how to foster a sense of community and connection. I want us to really think about how we can embrace these principles and always remember that we are not alone. Even if you're listening to this in your own space or watching this in your own space, you're not alone. There is a community out there, and there's ways to connect to communities that are centered on joy and pleasure and connected to all of those concepts. So this quote, I said we were going to come back to this. The deepest pleasure comes from riding the line between commitment and detachment. Commit yourself fully to the process, the journey, to bringing the best you can bring. Detach yourself from ego and outcome. Adrienne Marie Brown. And the reason why I chose this quote was because sometimes we are caught up in something that maybe makes us feel like we look silly, or pleasure isn't for us as Black people because we have all these other things to worry about. And especially for women who are in this space and the strong Black woman trope, I want us to detach ourselves from all of that, right? And fully lean into, I want to be able to access pleasure. I want to be able to understand what is pleasurable to me. And also, pleasure can be related to sex, but I'm not really getting deep into sex in this presentation. I'm really focusing on this sense in our body when something feels good, and how do we access that, and what things make us feel that sense. Is it drinking a really nice red wine? Is it going on a trip? Is it the exhilaration of a an amusement park roller coaster? Like, what feels good in our body? And yes, that can be sex, but your pleasure should not be only happening when you're engaging in physical intimacy. Okay, so again, as the researcher, I got to get into what the research says. I also should have made these transition for y'all. They transition on my side, but not for y'all, but that's okay. What the research says about Black folks and pleasure. So here's some things that we know, right? The first thing that we know is that Black people's everyday experiences are commonly absent from psychological studies on emotions, happiness, and well-being. Black people are often not centered in research in general unless Black people are doing the research, and we don't make up a lot of a lot of the doctors and PhDs and EDD holders in the grand scheme of things. The number fluctuates between 2 and 4% of Black people have a terminal degree, right? So no one is really researching us, and then we're left, we have to do that work, right? The second point is that Black people face more barriers than others, which inhibits access to engagement and a practice of pleasure. So whether it be social, cultural, or political barriers for us, or obstacles, we're not accessing pleasure and seeking joy in the same way as our other counterparts, particularly white people. So Albert S. Beckham, he was the third Black person to earn a PhD in psychology, conducted a 4-year study that he published in 1929. And he was seeking to answer, is the Negro happy, right? So he says in his study, he did a 4-year study where he and his students collected opinions from 2,000 Negro college students, mostly freshmen and sophomores, from 500 unskilled laborers, 300 preachers, 210 physicians, 200 housewives. That means they didn't have any other employment outside of the home, 108 teachers, 75 lawyers, and 50 musicians. There was a 3-question survey, and the questions were, do you believe the Negro is happy? Yes or no. Are you happy as a Negro? Yes or no. And should the Negro be happy? Yes or no. I'm really fascinated by this study, so I'm just going to give you all a little bit, but it said, overall, opinions varied by both occupation and gender, and his results were sort of all over the place, right? So 33% of Beckham's subjects believed that the Negro was happy, and similarly, only 34.3% answered yes to the question that the Negro should be happy. But although approximately 2/3 of Beckham's subjects were convinced that Blacks were unhappy and should be unhappy, 75% said that they were happy themselves. So Beckham grappled a lot with the findings and concluded that understanding the happiness of the average Negro was social and abnormal psychology and ought to be defined as a complex, right? And this is something that we're seeing even today, this idea that, can Black people really be happy? So we know that during the 2008-2013 time, which people call the Obama effect, there were higher levels of optimism among Black people. But immediately, since the 2016 election, those ratings have plummeted, right? So there are people out here wondering, can Black people be happy? What brings joy to Black people? But no one is actually really studying that outside of what Europeans and Eurocentric research has defined as happiness. So there's this complex back and forth of, what is happiness to Black people, And can they access it? Or are there too many obstacles, social, economic, cultural, political obstacles for them to ever truly be happy? It's a very interesting concept. And there's not a lot of agreement in the field about it. All right, so we have to have the history of breath work in the African community, because this isn't something that wasn't for us, right? So breath work or conscious breathing is often intertwined with spiritual health and communal practices, and it sort of falls into three buckets. So traditional practices and spirituality. So when we're talking about African traditional religion, this is when breath work is often integrated into religious rituals and ceremonies. Breath is seen as a vital force connecting the individual with the divine and ancestors. There could be rituals that involve specific breathing patterns to align oneself with spiritual energies and facilitate communication with the spiritual world. Also, shamanic practices in some African communities, shamans or spiritual leaders use breath work as a part of their healing practice, right? So that's sort of the second bucket, is this healing. And this can include rhythmic breathing, often combined with chanting or drumming. And then also African communities have their own indigenous forms of meditation and physical discipline. So what we would call yoga, for example, or stretching practices, those are also found in African communities. This isn't just limited to South Asian communities. Secondly, the second bucket would be healing rituals. So health and healing. So in many African communities, healing rituals are a part of the practice of restoring balance and harmony within the body. Thinking about how breath can be used to relax patients or alleviate stress, and how you're reminded to breathe to sort of help your healing process when ailments occur. There's also community practices that come when it is involving health and healing. So breath work can be a part of community and the collective. So communal chanting, rhythmic breathing, synchronized energy, all of that is a part of our community in terms of being Africana people, right? And then when we think about how it shows up, this modern adaptation, is that it may not always be labeled as breath work in the modern adaptations, but the foundations of the tradition are always going to be present in this cultural, spiritual, and communal life for people. This third quote, sorry, we talked about this one again already. I'm sorry. But the deepest pleasure, again, comes from riding the line between commitment and detachment. Commit yourself fully to the process, the journey to bringing the best you can bring. And this is actually really important for what we're getting ready to do next. So I'm going to ask that you engage each instruction with intention. So whether you're by yourself or with other people, you're watching this as you lay across your bed in your home, maybe you're sitting on your couch. We're going to get ready to get into it a little bit. But before we do that, I just want to talk about embodied pleasure. So this is the experience of pleasure and joy that is deeply rooted in your body. It's a state of being fully present and connected to oneself physically, allowing for a full range of sensations and feelings to arise, right? So when we talk about embodied pleasure, we're first talking about body awareness. So you're going to be paying attention to physical sensations, feelings, needs, anything that comes up for you. The second thing is that we're going to be engaging in mindfulness. Be present in the moment without judgment of yourself, or if you're engaging in this with someone else, without judgment of them, right? The third thing is about embodied pleasure, is the somatic experience, right? So we're going to be focusing on those sensations that are happening in our body and not necessarily focusing on emotional and mental states. We're going to allow our emotions to flow. We're going to push away any thoughts that are distracting us and really try to stay engaged with our physical sensations. And then we want to make sure that we are activating pleasure, right? So in this activity, and as you go on to engage in this practice, thinking about how you're engaging in those activities that bring joy and pleasure, movement, touch, sensory exploration. Okay. And then we're also going to really try our best, which I think is sometimes often the hardest thing to do when we're thinking about embodied pleasure, is release and relaxation. You're allowing tension and stress to release. Some of you probably just lowered your shoulders, you unclenched your jaw. You have to make space for relaxation and pleasure. Embodied pleasure can happen through various activities. It can happen through movement, yoga, dance, sensual movement. It can happen through touch, taste, smell, breath work, art, music, writing, self-care, self-love. All of these things can get us to embodied pleasure, right? When you cultivate embodied pleasure, you're then able to deepen your connection to your body and your physical experience. You're going to be able to increase your self-awareness and self-acceptance. You're going to enhance your overall well-being and your resilience, because you're going to push through some of that awkwardness. And you're going to experience more joy and pleasure. And that is the goal for today and beyond. So in the context of Ubuntu, embodied pleasure is a key aspect of cultivating elation and communal joy. As you allow yourself to connect with your own pleasure and joy, you'll be able to share that with others in safe and supportive ways. So now we're going to engage in some breath work and movements, paying particular attention to our bodies, okay? This is going to be for about 3 or 4 minutes. So the first thing I need everyone to do in your own time, in your own space, is find your position. If you're going to be seated, sit comfortably in a chair or on the floor with your back straight, your shoulders relaxed, and place your hands on your knees or thighs. If you're standing, stand with your feet hip width apart. Your knees are going to be slightly bent, and allow your arms to just hang naturally by your side, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is some deep breathing with arm movement. You're going to inhale and reach. Inhale deeply through your nose as you slowly raise your arms overhead, spreading your fingers wide and reaching toward the sky. Imagine drawing in fresh, energizing air. Exhale gently through your mouth as you lower your arms back down to your sides. Feel the tension melting away with your breath. We're going to do this 2 more times. So again, inhale deeply through your nose as you slowly raise your arms overhead, spreading your fingers wide and reaching toward the sky. Imagine drawing in fresh, energizing air. Exhale gently through your mouth as you lower your arms back down to your sides. Feel the tension melting away with your breath. One last time without any instruction. Allow your arms to hang. Now we're going to gently twist and breathe. So our instruction is going to be, as you inhale gently, twist your torso to the right, bringing your left hand to your right knee or to the side of your chair, or simply extend your left hand out. Exhale as you return to the center, and then you're going to repeat the twist on the left side. We're just going to alternate twist from side to side, breathing in deeply and smoothly. Allow your breath to guide your movement and enhance your flexibility. So you're going to inhale and gently twist your torso, bringing your opposite hand to your opposite knee or your chair. And exhale and return to the center. Then you're going to do the other side.
I am joining in, everyone, because I love this, and I am joining Dr. Ogden because This is amazing.
We're going to do one more sequence with twisting, okay? So as you inhale, remember to
lose your face.
Oh,
what happened? Come on, we got to see, because I don't know how to do this without looking at you.
I don't know what happened. Okay,
hold on. Let's bring her back.
There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so for this last twist, you're going to breathe in and you're gently twisting your torso, just opposite side, okay? So you're reaching, and as you slowly exhale, just return back. So if you can do a deeper reach, do that. So stay in that twist and twist back. Great. Okay. And now we're just going to close with some grounding breaths, okay? So you're going to take a deep breath in through your nose, imagining roots growing from your feet or sitting your bones in the ground, and you're connecting with that sense of stability and support. So we're going to do this. We're going to breathe in for 15 seconds, if you can. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Breathe out. Yeah, big exhale. Nice. Full exhale. All of that tension, stress should all come out of your body. It's going to be, you might have to push it out. That's okay. Use your body. Feel where you're feeling those sensations. If there are emotions or feelings come, let them flow through. So again, take that deep breath in through your nose. Hold it for as long as you can, about 15 seconds. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Push it out. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Great. So that sequence, thank you for joining, Dr. Taylor. That sequence is one that you can mimic and do, you can commit to. That was 3, 4, 5 minutes maybe. If you can commit to that sequence every day, you're already on the pathway to engaging, right? I hope that when you were doing that sequence, you were able to push any sort of thoughts that may have come to your mind about what you couldn't do or what maybe was not feeling good in your body, and you were able to access what was feeling good. As you dropped your shoulders down and pushed that air out, maybe your lower back got less tense or your shoulders got less tense. You felt some relief come through the bottom of your fingers, right? So thinking about where your body was in those moments, okay? That is the goal. That is the focus. So I have some challenges for you all, okay? And I'm hoping that folks actually engage in them. And if you want to reach out to me as an accountability partner, we can do that. So our first thing that I'm going to have you all do, so you're going to have to come back to this recording and pause on this slide and take some notes or do whatever you need to do. But the first thing is going to be, after this class, I want everyone to spend a few moments journaling about how you felt. What thoughts or feelings came up? What was challenging? What was easy? I know when I first began to engage in breath work and mindful pleasure, I was so distracted by outside thoughts. If someone asks me now, oh, do you practice yoga? I tell them I don't, because sometimes my mind can't be cleared. And that's my own assumption about what it means to be, to practice yoga or to practice mindfulness. And it's not that your mind is empty, it's that you have the ability to push the thought out and re-engage immediately back into what you're doing. So I know for me, that was always like, well, am I supposed to be thinking? Am I not supposed to be thinking? So those were things that were challenging for me. So I invite you to reflect after this class and really think about what's coming up for you, right? Then I want you to commit, right? So we said what you want, you have to practice, right? So I want you to commit for the next 7 days at least, and I'm only saying 7, even though we know it takes 28 days to build a habit. For the next 7 days at least, engage in pleasure. Identify an activity that sparks joy and spend at least 5 minutes doing it. If that means you got to wake up 5 minutes earlier so that your kids aren't bothering you, bay's not in your ear as soon as you wake up, But find those 5 minutes and do something that is pleasurable to you, something that sparks joy. Dancing, breath work, enjoying a nice quiet moment to yourself, singing a song, chanting. Every day, I find at least 5 minutes in my day to just do something pleasurable. Sometimes something pleasurable is sitting out on my balcony and just watching the garden area outside of my apartment, right? And just sitting there and enjoying nature. Sometimes something pleasurable is longer than 5 minutes. I've decided I really want to cook myself a really nice meal, and that's going to take longer time. Sometimes it's going for a walk, but every day, and you should be able to track what that thing was. What did you do today that was pleasurable? Then we need to connect, right? Ubuntu, we are interconnected. Identify at least one person you can share your new commitment with and get support from on your journey. If that one person is me, DM me. Okay? Email me. If that one person is me, y'all gonna get my contact information at the end of this. Connect with me. That's my challenge to you all, is that you have to make a commitment to this. It has to be a mindful thing that you are committed to doing, that you are intentionally engaging in. So we're going to reflect, we're going to commit, and we're going to connect. Dr. Taylor, I know you're in the background. If there are any questions that folks have, now would be a great time if they want to start putting them in the chat. And then
yes, I told people to put them in the chat if they'd like. Also know that if you leave a message, you leave a comment, like say you watch this after the live stream, you leave a comment, Dr. Ogden will come back periodically to answer questions, or if there's anything that we on the team can answer, we will definitely do that for you. I'm not sure. Here I am playing stage manager. I don't even know what's going on. I'm going to leave.
One more slide.
Yeah, because you got one more slide, and I'm going to leave.
So these are my final thoughts, and this is the words of the great Audre Lorde Taylor, who wrote In the Uses of the Erotic as Power. Ooh, I love that title. The uses of the erotic as power. And this book, if y'all don't have it, this essay, pardon me, go find it. It's available online. So many good parts, but this one really, really spoke to me when I was preparing for this. Once we begin to feel deeply all the aspects of our lives, we begin to demand from ourselves and from our life pursuits that they feel in accordance with that joy which we know ourselves to be capable of. Our erotic knowledge empowers us, becomes a lens through which we scrutinize all aspects of our existence, forcing us to evaluate those aspects honestly in terms of their relative meaning within our lives. That's powerful. That's powerful. Here's my contact information if folks want to stay connected. If you're looking for resources, again, start with that essay from Audre Lorde Taylor, Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Marie Brown. There's a lot of things out there around pleasure and how we Black folks are moving towards being able to access pleasure for ourselves and what that means for us. So I would just say, make sure that you are not just, out here trying to figure out how we can make life happen. Life is hard, right? And we need each other as a community. So let's lean on each other. Let's make sure that we're engaging in things that bring us joy and happiness and guiding us to a place of collective communal joy. Life is too hard to be trying to do it by ourselves, and we are not designed as people to be isolated, to be so hyper independent. That is not how we are designed as humans to be, and especially not humans of African descent. Community is in our DNA, and we need to be back embracing those principles. If there are questions in the chat, I'm going to pause and let those come, and I'm going to stop sharing these slides.
Y'all, that was amazing. And what I love about it is that you can come back to it if you need a refresher on what you need to do, and you have it right here, SankofaSummerSchool. We got it for you in perpetuity. Thank you so much, Dr. Ogden, for just sharing your knowledge, sharing your research. I was learning things. I was sitting there like, what? I didn't know that. And that's what it's all about. we're never too old to learn. We are never too educated to learn. And I really appreciate what you brought here. As I said to everyone, and I'm going to send you to the backstage. As I've said to everyone, we are here. We got 7 more classes for this 2024 session. You can definitely go online, SankofaSummerSchool.com. You see it scrolling there. Check us out. Learn more about what we're doing. Still have plenty of time to register so that you can get the direct information on how to be here with us. We also, this is totally grassroots. We are not funded by any institution. This is a labor of love, just something that came out of my own mind and my own heart and spirit. I feel like the ancestors put it on me to do this. So we are run completely on donations right now. So your donations matter. Your funding us goes towards me being able to pay instructors like Dr. Ogden and to be able to keep things running, and all these little theatrics and things that we have, all of that costs money. So we definitely appreciate your donations. So if you can go to our website, SankofaSummerSchool.com/donate, you can make a donation there. Our instructors are truly blessing us. So I do my best to bless them with break them off a little something every year to show them how much we appreciate that and taking the time to help us elevate our thinking. Okay, so we are here. Next week, we're back. So this week, we had 3 classes. We are back on Monday. Check out our next video. You can go and look on our channel and see what the next video is. We are going to be discussing the Black church and its role in liberation movements and, from slavery till now. And I think that that's really going to be interesting. So we welcome you to come back, and we appreciate you so much. All right, everybody, take care.